Hey guys, it's Danny. Today we're gonna take a look at some not so pretty things that happened over the course of my vacation. We will transform them into a learning opportunity because that's what we do here on this channel. I'm gonna show you some spots on my orchid leaves and what created them. I hope you do enjoy today's video and you learned something new. If you do enjoy it, give it a like, leave me a comment, and hey, why not subscribe? I post 3 times a week. So before we start, I really wanted to show you this. This is the Phalaenopsis hieroglyphica that I purchased, I think last year. Look at her, look how big she grew. These 2 leaves have grown in my care. I'm not entirely sure about the others. I think she arrived with them. I need to apply more slow release fertilizer, but look at her, look how beautiful she grew, and I have a whole lot more buds to open. She's barely fitting in the MissOrchidGirl cabinet, so I will probably display her outside for a while. But yeah, I just wanted to show you her because she's so beautiful before we get to the really ugly stuff. All right, so you might have seen a very short vertical video, which was intended to be a shorts, to be fully honest. It ended up not being a shorts because it was over 60 seconds. I didn't realize it. You might have seen it last week. In case you didn't, I'll show you some footage from it. Now in this video, I was showing you a whole bunch of my Phalaenopsis orchids looking horrible, having all sorts of spots and yellow leaves. And I was saying in that video that what caused it was none other than, where are you? Where are you, culprit? Window cleaner. Holy moly, I have the same bottle for the past 3 years because I do use it in the grow room. I have a lot of glass and not only shelves in general, and the window cleaner not only cleans it very well but also gets rid of whatever pest and crawlies are on the shelves. So this exact same bottle I have been using for the past 3 years. It's almost done. I got a new one. You can see it's in a more friendly packaging. Look at that, 98% biodegradable. Well, the reason why my orchids reacted the way they did is because of this 98% biodegradable thing. So let's explain how this situation happened, and I'll give you an update on the orchids, show you how they're doing. In that video, I shared with you an article that we'll go back to and we will address. Most window cleaners nowadays use ammonia. Ammonia is a pretty good cleaning solution, and especially for glass, it's quite used because it doesn't really leave streaks. When you use only water, you get all sorts of spots and streaks because water or tap water typically contains salt, amongst other things. Well, with ammonia, you don't get streaks, it evaporates really fast, and it's actually not harmful for the environment. It is, as it says on the bottle, biodegradable, and in small quantities and used correctly, window cleaner is actually not such a bad thing. Again, emphasis on using it correctly, which is something I didn't. It was my mistake what happened. We'll get to that. Because what ammonia does in the air in smaller quantities is react with the humidity in the air and transform into ammonium, which is not nearly as toxic as ammonia. And again, in nature, this ammonium falls to the ground and there it gets converted into nitrates through the process of nitrification and other processes. It ends up being plant food, actually. So in nature, having ammonia is not a bad thing. Obviously, having excess ammonia is pretty bad. You don't want to have that. But window cleaner used solely for the purpose of cleaning the windows is not bad. Now, how about ammonia in the air? Well, again, if used correctly, I do believe that ammonia is not bad for you because it will react really fast with the moisture in the air, create ammonium, which is not toxic, and in the end, it will end up in the environment where it will be broken down by bacteria naturally and become plant food. So it's kind of a win-win situation. At least this is what this bottle claims. More than that, I think you should just talk to a physician or a doctor. I'm not here to give you medical advice. I'm here to tell you what this bottle says. More than that, a doctor can tell you, I did my due diligence, I'm okay with this, you should do your due diligence. Anyway, the key word in this whole discussion is making sure this ammonia is going into the air. It doesn't stay in a closed environment. Well, what did I do? Let's go back, let's rewind what I did. So what I did was I used window cleaner inside the MissOrchidGirl cabinet. Now I did use the same cleaner on the outside multiple times because the outside gets a little bit dusty. I have fingerprints. You can imagine the outside gets more dirty than the inside. The inside I've never cleaned in this almost a year since I've been using this cabinet because I just didn't have to. But it was about time. There were some stains on the glass. There was a little bit of dust there. So I cleaned the inside, and my mistake was that I did not leave this cabinet open so that one, the window cleaner solution gets evaporated completely, and two, it also gets ventilated and dispersed into the rest of the room. The quantity of window cleaner I used was pretty tiny. I just wetted a paper towel and just wiped everything, and that was about it. But because what I did afterwards was to arrange the orchids inside and then do this and trap all of that ammonia vapor inside, that ammonia vapor did not transform into ammonium, most probably, and it affected my orchids. Now, why did it affect the orchids? How does it actually work? Well, the answer is right there in the article that I shared with you. Since ammonia does react with water, what it does when it comes in contact with leaves and plants in general is actually pull out the water from the structures, from the leaves. And leaves are typically the structures that contain most water, at least in the Millspo cabinet. So what happened was they literally got burned. It's not the same type of burn that sun causes, and because the reaction is very fast, this is why it took about 3 days from the moment that I used window cleaner to the moment where all the leaves were already yellowing. Only 3 days. I noticed the damage the next day. I didn't really think much of it, to be honest, because spotting on leaves, it happens. It is as natural as the leaf itself. It will happen after a while, but then the second day, it already looked a lot worse. And the third day, well, that's when I filmed the video for you guys. So now let's take a little look-see at the orchids, see how they're doing. So the 3 affected orchids were these 3. They were all clustered right here, which was the first indication that it wasn't something that got transmitted. Since I don't share water, I don't splash around, there's no fan in here, there's no ventilation to move around the pathogens. It was clearly something that I placed in this area, and the only thing that I placed was the window cleaner. So only these 3 got affected, these 2 the most, this one the most, this one second most, and this one the least. So it was in this area most probably. So this is one of them. This one sadly lost all of its leaves. I currently have a little stump. I'm hoping that the crown will continue to grow since this wasn't rot. But then again, that tissue could have gotten infected after it collapsed. So I don't know what's gonna happen with this one. Sadly, I think I'm gonna lose it. This was the Palace Reef. A little bummed about it, but I do have other red Phalaenopsis, thankfully. This one, oh my goodness. This is actually growing a flower spike. I think it's gonna pause it because it's shocked a little bit. This is the Gigantea Crossed Princess Cayulani. It's from one of my recent orders. This one lost 2 of its leaves, which I can actually show you. I kept. This is how the leaves ended up looking. So 2 of the bottom leaves were lost, and almost the entirety of this leaf. I cut it, but as you can see, the damage advanced a little bit all the way to the abscission point, which is right here. So I'm hoping that this one will be okay. I don't think it will continue further than the abscission point. Is that the word? I think that's the word. It's pretty much where the leaf naturally has a disconnection, a segment, if you will. So when it's gonna fall from there. I think this one will be okay. And this one was the least affected one. It only affected a portion of the leaf, and I managed to cut the affected portion. You can see it looks good, nothing advanced. So this one is absolutely okay, considering the other 2. But yeah, that's the full extent of the damage. This one, I don't know. The good part is none of the other orchids were affected. Everybody's doing okay, but oh my goodness, can you imagine if all of my orchids suddenly lost all of their leaves? This is where the Hieroglyphica lives. That's why there's a space there. Everybody else is thankfully okay. But oh boy, the boo that I made. And well, I learned my lesson, and that was the whole point of that video, to alert you on the fact that ammonia, if you don't let it ventilate properly, it can cause some damage. Now, as I was saying, I did and I still use window cleaner in my grow space. I have used it for the past 5 years, different bottles, same thing. And this is the first time that I have issues, but it's also the first time that I use it in an enclosed space. And the third little blemish that I wanted to address is this over here. Now for the trained eye, which I'm sure most of you or many of you have already, this looks like a burn. And well, your assessment is correct. It really is a burn. And by the way, this is the Bronze Maiden, the first one, not the second one. I have another one, which is growing so great. Let me just show you. So many tangents, but I must. Look how beautiful she is. And look at the leaves. They're similar but different, right? I'm curious to see how this one blooms. I really like this orchid, but I don't like my particular individual, so I'm hoping this one is better. More specifically, I don't like the flower of this one, I like the leaves. Anyway, I digress as always, but you guys know me. Now, this is a burn, and it did not happen because of direct sunshine. It happened because of artificial light. However, not in the way you might think. So let's go on the shelf and show you exactly what happened. Okay, so as you guys know, I'm currently using grow lights on my shelves. I'm using the Barina LED tubes, which I will have another video on, as I ordered a few more and I created a beautiful grow shelf. Again, I digress. Anyway, with these particular grow lights, having burns is close to impossible because they're not extremely bright so that they heat up the leaf. If the leaf is lower than, let's say, 5 centimeters from the Barinas, everything is okay. It's just slightly warm. Nothing as hot enough as to create a burn. And that is one of the very good things with these particular grow lights. They don't actually heat up the room all too much. They kind of warm it up a little bit. That's why they are fantastic in the winter in the Millspo cabinet for the warm growers. If I place my hand here, it's slightly warm, slightly warm, which is great for warm growers, especially in cooler climates. But if you go a little closer on the actual tube, if you touch the tube, you're not actually going to get burned right away because again, they don't heat up all that much. And I can definitely sit with my hand here for a while. As you can see, I'm like touching it and I'm still okay. But let me tell you, if I sit like this for half an hour, I'm gonna start to become pretty uncomfortable. I'm definitely gonna have some redness on my hand here because it's getting pretty hot at this point, even though it might not eventually burn me. Well, my fingers are a lot more resilient than orchid leaves. So if ever an orchid leaf touches directly the Barinas, like so, long enough, it will create a burn. Now, this is a pretty tiny orchid, so it didn't actually grow into the Barinas. What happened was, and this is something I will address in that video as well, I think I showed you in a previous video, the Barinas have a little sticker here. Do you see it? This sticker. On some models, this sticker is really glued on here. These are the older Barinas. With the new Barinas, I have issues. This glue, because of the heat, I presume, starts to peel off from here. So what I have is half a Barina fallen because this silver sticker just peeled off. The actual double adhesive that I placed remains stuck to that sticker, but the whole tube falls. And this is what happened on this orchid. I came one morning to a fallen tube on my orchid, and I'm presuming that tube has fallen somewhere the previous day, so it has been sitting there for the past day or so. It has been sitting long enough to create damage, and this is the damage it created. Considering that the tube was completely fallen like this on this orchid, the damage is quite minimal. So I got off cheap, to be fully honest, but yeah, you kind of have to be a little careful even with artificial light that your plants don't actually grow into the tube directly. Again, as you can see, I can totally keep my fingers here, but in half an hour, I'm not gonna be comfortable at all. It's gonna get really hot. So always be careful when you're growing orchids with artificial light that they don't actually touch the light, they are well below the light, and also that you stabilize the light properly so that it doesn't actually fall on your plants. Other than that, as you can see, my orchids are, say, about 10 centimeters or so from the Barinas. Absolutely fine, especially with the Barinas, which, you know, they have very dispersed LEDs. There are those grow lights which have like 30 LEDs in one little bulb, like in a circle of, I don't know, 15 centimeters diameter. That's a lot of density there. That will create a lot of heat because you put all of them together. But with the Barinas, you know, oh, I think I can show you here. Sorry for the flickers, but you can see how dispersed the LEDs are. They really don't get hot, but they can sometimes fall on the plants. So this is about it for today. These are the things I wanted to show you, things that happened during vacation. settle down. As you can see, my shelves are kind of empty. I'm still working on it. I'm showering my orchids, spraying them, putting them back. I had some issues with a new bug, which I don't know. It's like you mix spider mites with thrips and you get this bug. I'm gonna show you in a different video dedicated to that bug. I've seen it on the plants outside. It's coming from the outside, so maybe it's just something in my area. But yeah, it affected pretty much all of my orchids. I also had some issues with the orchids outside since this year has been so hot in my area, and I'm honestly working on having my orchids all the time in the grow space, particularly in years like these where things are just much hotter than usual, if that's even possible. And not even cattleyas are happy outside anymore. So yeah, there's still a lot of work happening in the plant room. I will finish as soon as I can and give you a tour, but I will tag you along when I get the Barinas, when I do the shelves, and all of this fun stuff. We're gonna talk about it when the time comes. But yeah, for today, these are some of the bad stuff that happened during vacation. Not that bad, could have been worse, but yeah, it's important to learn from these things. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Hope you've enjoyed your time. Hope you finished your meal. I usually watch YouTube when I eat, so I'm presuming some of you do too, or maybe when I'm washing dishes or things of the sorts. So hope you had a good time, and thank you so much for joining. Subscribe to my channel for more orchid videos, tutorials, experiments, updates, and other fun orchid subjects. If you wish to support the channel, do consider becoming a member or visit the merch store linked down below in the description. You can also follow me on Instagram and Facebook. It's always nice to stay in touch there as well. And with that said, I'll see you next time. Bye!